The rain fell in sheets, hammering the cracked pavement of the quiet neighborhood. Daniel pulled his worn-out jacket tighter and tilted the umbrella over his daughter's head instead of his own. His jeans were already damp, and the cold wind made him shiver, but Lily, his 7-year-old, skipped beside him, humming a tune despite the weather. She always tried to cheer him up after his long shifts at the diner. Daniel's life had been a string of hardships. When his wife, Anna, passed away 5 years ago from a sudden illness, he was left with nothing but debts, a grieving heart, and a little girl to raise. He had no extended family to lean on, so he worked day and night, first as a delivery driver, then later as a cook in a small roadside diner. His pay was meager, but at least it kept food on the table and a roof, though a leaky one, over their heads. As they turned down the street leading to their apartment complex, Daniel's tired eyes caught something unusual. A faint sound cut through the noise of the storm. At first, he thought it was a stray cat, but as he listened closely, it became clearer. It was crying. A baby's cry. His chest tightened. "Lily, stay close," he murmured, his protective instincts kicking in. He followed the sound into a dimly lit alleyway. There, under the flickering glow of a broken street lamp, he saw it. A stroller. Small, cheap, and soaked from the rain. Inside it, a baby girl, no more than a year old, screamed at the top of her lungs. Her tiny fists flailed helplessly, her face blotchy and red from the cold. Daniel's heart stopped. "Dear God," he rushed forward, kneeling down. The baby's clothes were drenched, clinging to her fragile body. Her lips quivered as she tried to catch her breath between sobs. "Dad." Lily's voice trembled, eyes wide with fear. "She's freezing. Someone left her here." Daniel swallowed hard, scanning the alley. Empty trash bins, puddles, and shadows. No adults. No mother. No father. Nothing but this child abandoned in the storm. He looked back at his daughter. "Sweetheart, I don't know. Maybe someone's coming back. Maybe," but he stopped himself. Who would leave a baby in weather like this? The little girl's cries grew weaker, not stronger. That terrified him more than anything. He slipped off his jacket and wrapped it around her small frame, lifting her into his arms. She was so light, too light. He felt the bones of her tiny back through the thin fabric. Lily stepped closer, peeking at the baby. "She's hungry, Dad. I can tell." Her eyes glistened with worry, the way Anna's used to when she looked at him before asking him to take a break from overworking. Daniel nodded. "We can't leave her here." He didn't hesitate any longer. With one arm holding Lily close and the other cradling the infant, he hurried back through the rain toward their small apartment. By the time they got inside, both children were shivering. Daniel gently placed the baby on the couch and rummaged through the kitchen. His fridge was nearly empty, just a carton of milk, some leftover mashed potatoes, and a few eggs. Still, it was better than nothing. He warmed the milk, poured it into a cup, and cooled it again until it was just warm enough. Using a spoon, he carefully offered it to the baby. At first, she turned her head weakly, but then she latched on, desperate, swallowing each drop. Daniel exhaled in relief. "There you go, little one, that's it. Fill that tummy." Lily sat cross-legged nearby, watching with a seriousness that didn't match her age. "Dad, she's beautiful. Look at her eyes. They're so big." The baby blinked up at them, her cries now replaced with small hiccups. Her eyes were indeed large, wide and innocent, a deep shade of brown that seemed to look straight into Daniel's soul. When she finally stopped crying, Daniel mashed up some of the potatoes and gave her a little. She gobbled it clumsily, smearing her face with food. For the first time that night, Lily giggled. "She's messy, Dad, but she's cute." Daniel smiled faintly. The sound of his daughter's laugh had become his anchor in life. He tucked the baby against his chest, rocking her gently until her eyes grew heavy. He made a makeshift bed for her on the couch, layering old blankets to keep her warm. Soon she drifted into sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling steadily. But Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat at the small kitchen table, head in his hands, staring at the sleeping baby. His mind raced. Who would leave such a child outside like that? Was it neglect? An accident? Had her parents been nearby, searching? Should he call the police? Yet, he hesitated. He didn't trust the system. Too many stories of children being lost in it, shuffled from one foster home to another. He'd grown up in such a system himself, never knowing the love of a stable family until he met Anna. The thought of this baby suffering the same fate made his stomach twist. He stood and walked to the couch, brushing the damp curls from her forehead. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. His chest ached with a strange mix of sorrow and tenderness. He remembered when Lily was this small, how he and Anna used to take turns waking at night to feed her. How Anna would hum lullabies while rocking her to sleep. Those memories felt like a lifetime ago, yet tonight they came rushing back, sharp and bittersweet. He realized he hadn't allowed himself to feel that kind of softness in years, too focused on survival. Lily's voice broke his thoughts. She had woken up and padded into the living room, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Dad, can we keep her?" Daniel looked at his daughter's hopeful eyes, then at the sleeping baby. His throat tightened. "She's not ours to keep, sweetheart. Someone's missing her. We'll have to find her family." "But what if they don't want her?" Lily whispered. "Then she'll be all alone. Like us." Daniel crouched down and pulled his daughter into his arms. "We're not alone, Lily. We have each other. And tonight, she has us too." Lily nodded against his chest, but Daniel could still feel the weight of her words. He carried her back to bed, tucking her in and kissing her forehead. When the apartment finally grew quiet, Daniel sat again in the dim light, watching over the sleeping baby. A storm still raged outside, but inside, for the first time in a long time, there was a fragile kind of peace. He told himself it was only for one night. Just until he figured out what to do in the morning. But deep down, he knew something had changed. This tiny stranger had stirred something in his weary heart, something he thought he had buried with Anna. And what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that somewhere across town, in a sprawling mansion lit by chandeliers, a mother's heart was breaking. A woman with power, wealth, and everything money could buy was on her knees, praying, begging the night to return her baby to her arms. And by fate's strange design, that baby was now asleep in the home of a man who had almost nothing but love to give. The morning sunlight crept slowly through the thin curtains of Daniel's small apartment, painting the cracked walls with a pale glow. The storm had passed, leaving the streets damp and glistening. Inside, the baby stirred restlessly on the couch, kicking her legs against the blanket Daniel had tucked around her. Lily was still asleep in her room, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her soft breathing filling the silence. Daniel, however, hadn't slept a wink. He sat at the table, staring into a half-empty cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. His thoughts had been a storm of their own all night. He knew he couldn't keep the baby. Somewhere, someone was searching for her, maybe panicking, maybe grieving. But there was a gnawing fear inside him. What if she belonged to someone who didn't care? What if whoever had left her in that alley had done so on purpose? He rubbed his temples, torn between doing the right thing and protecting the little girl from a world he didn't trust. The system had chewed him up as a child, and he didn't want her to face the same fate. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock. At first, it was faint, then urgent, pounding against the wood of his door. Daniel froze. Hardly anyone visited him. His landlord, a neighbor. Carefully, he rose and opened the door. Standing in the narrow hallway were two men in black suits, their eyes sharp, scanning the apartment like hawks. But it was the woman behind them who caught Daniel's attention. She stepped forward hesitantly, her heels clicking against the floor. She was elegant, her coat tailored, her hair pulled back neatly, yet her face betrayed her. Her eyes were red and swollen, her cheeks damp with tears that hadn't stopped. And when her gaze fell on the baby sitting up on Daniel's couch, playing with a piece of blanket in her hands, she gasped so sharply it echoed in the hallway. "My God," her voice cracked as she stumbled past Daniel. She dropped to her knees in front of the couch, arms outstretched. "Emily. My sweet baby, it's you." The baby blinked, then squealed in recognition. She lifted her arms toward the woman, who scooped her up in trembling hands, pulling her close to her chest. Tears streamed down her face as she rocked her child, kissing her damp curls over and over. "I thought I'd lost you forever. Oh, Emily, never again, never again." Daniel stood frozen, his heart thudding in his chest. Relief washed over him, so she did have a mother. But then came the questions. Who was this woman? Why had her child been left alone in the rain? The woman clung to her daughter, but after a long moment, she lifted her gaze to Daniel. Her voice shook as she tried to compose herself. "I'm Olivia Hart," she said, her tone both gracious and broken. "Emily is my daughter." Daniel nodded slowly. "I figured she must belong to someone. His throat tightened. I just couldn't leave her out there in the storm. Olivia's hands trembled as she held Emily tighter. She pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead, then looked back at Daniel with eyes brimming with both gratitude and pain. Last night, there was an accident. My driver lost control, and the car flipped. Emily was with her nanny in the backseat. In the chaos, they were separated. By the time I got out, by the time help arrived, she was gone. I thought, her voice broke, and she covered her mouth with her hand. I thought I'd lost her forever. Daniel's chest ached as he listened. He glanced at the baby, at Emily, who was nestled against her mother now, calmer but still holding the edge of Daniel's jacket she had slept with. I don't know how to thank you, Olivia whispered. Her tears fell freely again. You fed her, you sheltered her, you saved her life. I can't, her words trailed off as emotions overcame her. Daniel shook his head gently. No thanks needed. Any father would have done the same. No child should go hungry, or be left out in the rain. Something in his words pierced Olivia deeply. She closed her eyes, clutching Emily as if she would disappear again if she let go. When she looked up, her expression was raw, stripped of the polished exterior her wealth and status usually demanded. You don't understand, she whispered. I'm a billionaire. I have everything people could ever dream of. But last night, I realized none of it means anything. None of it could bring my baby back to me. And then I find her here, in the home of a man who has almost nothing, yet gave her what I couldn't: safety, warmth, love. Daniel shifted uneasily, unused to being seen that way. His apartment was cramped, the wallpaper peeling, the stove older than he was. Yet Olivia's words made him realize what mattered to her wasn't his surroundings, but his heart. Emily cooed softly, reaching a tiny hand toward Daniel. She babbled, as if asking him to take her again. Olivia noticed and let out a shaky laugh through her tears. She already trusts you. Daniel reached out instinctively, brushing her hand with his finger. A small smile tugged at his lips. She's a strong little girl. You should be proud. For a moment, the three of them sat in silence, the struggling cook, the billionaire mother, and the baby who had bridged their worlds. It was as though fate had orchestrated a meeting neither of them could have imagined. Olivia wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. I don't know how I can repay you, Daniel. But I can't just walk away. Please, let me do something. For you, for your daughter. Her eyes softened as she glanced toward Lily, who had wandered sleepily into the room, rubbing her eyes. You're raising her alone. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, her mom passed away years ago. It's just us. Olivia's expression crumpled. She pressed her lips together, holding back another flood of tears. You've been giving so much love, with so little for yourself. And last night, you gave that same love to my Emily. You reminded me what really matters. For Olivia, who had built her empire with iron will and sleepless nights, it was a shattering revelation. She had thought money could protect her daughter from the world, but all it took was one accident to strip her of control. And yet, here was a man who had nothing but gave everything anyway. Tears streaked down her face as she whispered, you saved not just Emily's life, you saved mine, too. Because without her, I don't know if I could have gone on. Daniel looked at her quietly, his heart heavy with compassion. He had known loss. He knew exactly what she meant. In that tiny apartment, surrounded by peeling paint and secondhand furniture, Olivia Hart, the billionaire who had it all, broke down in the arms of her child, humbled by the kindness of a man who had almost nothing. And Daniel, the single dad who had long believed the world had forgotten him, realized he had just changed someone's life forever. Because sometimes, love shows up not in mansions or wealth, but in the smallest of kitchens, on the stormiest of nights, when a hungry baby finds a father's arms.